Fire away.
We had a chance to speak yesterday, but you talked a little bit yesterday about your failures in business world, and a lot of times I think in these meetings we talk about how successful everybody is, but I think failure is a part of success. So can you expand a little bit on some of your failures and maybe how you bounced back and what you learned as far as what direction you're supposed to go in life after that?
I don't know so much, and Tom can jump in as well. You know, in business, much like golf, you're not going to be successful all the time. And for me, if I hit a good golf shot, I really wouldn't think about how I hit the good golf shot. If I did not hit a good golf shot, in my mind, I was always trying to figure out what I did wrong. Well, that's true in business. If we entered into a business activity and it didn't work after we'd done the due diligence, after we'd taken our practice swings, and after we'd gotten our mind ready for it, and it didn't work, I wouldn't forget about it. I'd be one of those people in the middle of the night who'd wake up thinking about it, who'd be in the shower thinking about it. And I learned a whole lot more from my failures, just the small parts of them, about what I should have seen and what I didn't see. And it taught me, a lot of times those failures were a function of interpersonal relationships and being able to evaluate people. You know, Tom talked about team, aligning yourself, and I know yesterday I talked a little bit about it, aligning yourself with quality people, people of integrity. Those are the people who are going to get you there. And once again, I'll liken it to playing golf. If you play golf with somebody and you're playing for $2 and that person is moving it in the rough, or tell you that he made a 5 instead of a 6 or a 7, what's he going to do as your business partner in what you're doing? So I believe that once again, I've gone off one of those ADD rabbit trails. I believe that failure teaches you and disciplines you on certain elements to look for in different ventures and in different people.
Excellent. Any other questions from the advisory council members? Yes, yeah.
There's so much information available, even more these days than when I was a student. How do you keep up with what's going on in your field? How do you reduce the fire hose to a manageable?
You hire really good people. And I say that in all sincerity. You know, we're good, you know, and Tom didn't talk about this, and it's an incredible compliment to him, but his son has gone to work at his group. Doesn't work for him, but saw what he was able to accomplish at JLL, Staubach, and his son was really interested in doing that. But I think that you will be determined, how successful you are will be determined by the number of people that you can surround yourself with. Those quality people will be able to provide you the information. As you know, it is a fire hose. There's no way either one of us could do it.
I think a lot of art form is figuring out from all the information what's germane to the task, and so you have to funnel it down and get that. As Bobby said, we're sort of, everything I do, unfortunately, even starting in New Mexico State, I studied as a group, I played on a team, and I still work as a team. You know, everything about it is team. And it's a great way to live, you know, when you have folks around you that think the same way and align the same way you do. And we expect a lot from, we've got a young lady that just got out of college working for us, doing an amazing job, and she's doing a lot of research for us. And she's able to identify what to do. I give her a task and she comes back and says, this is what I think, and I look at it, and it's very good stuff. I think this graduating class, you folks are very smart, let's put it that way, very smart.
That's great to hear.
So I'm on the advisory council, and I've never met these two gentlemen because today's my first meeting. But if you'll humble me for just a moment, I wanted to share with you my first impression of these two gentlemen. So I like it, Leslie. Come on. So the funny thing is, I know all of the gentlemen they've been speaking about except Mr. Staubach. But all the people here in Las Cruces, I know these gentlemen very well, but I do not know these two gentlemen. So let me just point out, if you'll humble me just a minute, and then I'll beg Mickey for forgiveness later for putting me on the spot. So we're looking at these two men, right? And this gentleman on the right has a formal blue suit on, which means take me serious, and then has this little spark of color, which might say, but not too serious because I'm kind of could be fun, right? So like right away, just by looking at this gentleman, I'm thinking, okay, he's probably pretty smart, but probably has a little bit of a fun side to it, right? So that's the kind of message he's going to send going into an interview, and if that's the culture of your company, imagine having this kind of gentleman working for you, right? And then I look at Tom, and I think a seersucker coat. Now there's only so many men that will wear those, right? But that's typically gentlemen of the South. And so to me, my immediate impression of Tom is we're dealing with a gentleman here. A kind gentleman.
You're absolutely
baby,
right.
I didn't know where you were going.
So, first impression is just so important, and I look forward to working with you over the next couple of years. But I just wanted to share my interpretation of the first 10 minutes of meeting both of these men and what that message is if they were coming into my office. I hope that was okay.
You know, Tom talked about interviews, and for those of you who are going to go through the interview process, one thing that I believe fervently is your resume, as much as you work on it, is going to be stacked with a bunch of other resumes. You have got to do something during that short period of time to differentiate yourself from the other 800 resumes they get, not only from New Mexico State, but Arizona State and University of Texas or wherever. The second thing is, if you will allow the interviewer to speak, he's going to tell you what he wants to hear in order to hire you. So don't overwhelm them with, you know, I am this, I am this, I am this. Give him a little time to let him tell you what's important to him to move you to the next level, because they'll do it. I did it. I'm sure Tom did it when he was interviewing. When we went to college campuses, we would tell them, we'd give them hints as to, you know, what we wanted, what we expected.
This is for Tom. You mentioned in your introduction, when you're in an interview, to ask questions such as, what are you looking for? Well, how exactly would we go about that without seeming facetious necessarily, I don't really know how to ask this. Like, how would we go about asking something like that?
Well, I think, first of all, they have your resume. You've seen my resume. Is there anything in particular you want to talk to me about? Is there anything in particular you want to address on the resume? And then you simply say, I have a question for you. And then you, whatever their question is, and you don't lead in with a big one. You just lead in with something about the research that you've done. Because clearly you've done research before you're there. So just, there's something that stands out. You know, I saw your mission statement, the following. Tell me about that.
Jerry?
I have a question for Tom. You played on probably arguably one of the best basketball team in New Mexico State with some of the, egos that were on that team. From a business perspective, and we'll talk about understanding the whole person. What did that experience teach you in terms of what made you successful?
Well, first of all, it was a phenomenal experience because we all liked each other, genuinely. From top to bottom, we all really liked each other, so we all cared about each other. So that was important. But it was if Jimmy Collins was having a bad game, Bill Moore would go in and pick him up. It was just, people were looking out for people. I mean, it went with us, the good news, it went beyond the team itself. If somebody needed a ride, there were little things like that that the team was really happy to do. That teamwork experience, like I say, I've carried teamwork really all through my life. I mean, that basketball experience has stuck with me. And Roger still introduces me as the only guy he knows that went to the Final Four. I sat on the bench, by the way. I don't know. I was on the bench.
But Tom will also share what made that team, or what he shared with me, and I don't mean to steal your thunder, but he has shared many times there weren't dominant personalities that tried to command everything that was going on. That Lou had the group. It was an organized group, and they had a common goal, and they knew that they could only win as a team. And they bought off on it.
It was awesome. One of the things, I mentioned this yesterday, one of the things Lou Henson said, Coach Henson said that I've never forgotten, he said, always do something you don't want to do every day because it builds character. Never forgotten that statement. Now, Roger Staubach would say there's no traffic jam on the extra mile. Okay.
Very good. Any other questions? Chance? Yes.
I know Bobby's going to live and work forever. I don't know if Tom is. It seems like from your talk that teamwork is kind of a universal theme, but I'm wondering what you think in the future, for future generation, what skills people are going to need to have or develop that we don't necessarily need now or will be more valuable in the future in your mind than they are today?
Well, I know you don't need a 4-column pad and a Pentel pencil anymore. It's what I still have to work with. For those of you who aren't accountants, that's kind of what we used a lot of.
What's the engineer?
Slide rules, log paper. I mean, that's where I started, and who knows, I might have been an engineer if I had had the HP calculators. I believe that I don't believe businesses will ever be able to be successful where there is not a community effort, where the culture of the enterprise, whether it be Amazon or Apple. I mean, if you look at the high-tech companies that we now see, I'm not involved in any high-tech. Everything I've got is old school. The high-tech companies all still have a culture of community, and they leverage off of one another, and they look for the brightest and the smartest, not to surpass them, but to bring them and to nurture them. I spoke yesterday to a class and encouraged the kids to, once a month, once a quarter, to mentor. I think mentorship is incredibly important at this stage because it prepares you to mentor other people in your organization. So if once a quarter you go to the Boys Club or Girls Club of America and find an individual and start that process, you'll end up getting more out of it than I know that sounds horrible, but they're going to benefit, but you're going to get a whole lot of benefit. It's not a one-way street. You will, and as you take that into the business world, you're going to want to mentor. You'll always want to mentor people to bring them up, to take on different challenges. I'm a big proponent of taking risks, making mistakes. You mentioned failure. I encourage everybody, as soon as they get out of school, to go make mistakes because typically you can afford to fix those mistakes before you get to be 50 plus. So, I wish I had a canned answer, but I don't.
One student had their hand up there. Do you have a question?
Well, you sort of touched on it, yeah. I was kind of interested in the fostering confidence part, because you said that it was one of the most important parts of your development as a student. And as students, we're still pretty inexperienced as far as entering the business culture. And so I guess I'm kind of curious about how you did that within yourself and how you fostered that confidence and how you built it.
I mean, I think it goes to what Liv Henson said. I think you put yourself in uncomfortable positions. I think that the more, and many people will say that sort of thing, go, read books that you don't want to read. Read about topics that you don't want to cover. Go to a church service for religion that you don't believe in. If you're a Democrat, go to a Republican caucus and hear what they have to say. Go put yourself in uncomfortable positions, and what you'll find is, in most instances, you're not any different than the people who are there, and the uncomfortable position that you believe was going to be present has been more magnified by your internal fears. The longer you let it fester, the worse it is. And the reality is, most people are just people. He's a boy from Syracuse, New York, and I'm a kid from Hilton, Oklahoma. And everybody's got a background, but nobody's really all that different. And kumbaya.
Okay, this gets back to the business of teaching, I guess. So, talking about teamwork, and of course, one of the things that any business student in the college will have done is team projects, maybe more times than they cared to. And the major complaint is always, as you would expect, that there are free riders in the group who get the same credit for the work as the ones who actually do the work. And so, and I'm confident that when you talk about interviewing, that a student who's done a lot of teamwork will be talking about their ability to work in teams. So, do you guys have some trick to sorting out the ones that free rode through the team versus the ones that actually did the work on the team?
I assure you, we've both hired a whole lot of people. We've made a whole lot of mistakes hiring people. It's just the nature of the game. But the teamwork, in my opinion, is incredible for the kids because it will help them identify people who are freeloaders. You'll be able to pick up on little, subtle, personal traits that will, later on in life, you'll be able to determine whether that guy is going to be a good business partner, going to be somebody that you're going to want to work with.
I'll tell you that it happens now. It happens in business. I mean, it's still happening. And it's little things. It's like you have a deadline. You're working in Dallas and you're working with a counterpart in Houston or in San Francisco, and you have a deadline. And everyone knows the deadline, and your partner misses it. You're responsible for the project. He misses his deadline. And, without really a valid excuse, and he might be a half hour later, it could be a day late. It still happens. And in business, you have to decide. Because if it happens too many times, you got to cut them loose. You got to cut them loose. And I think if you're in your program here, I would think you'd be saying, look, we know what you're doing. It's not acceptable. This team is going to make it work. If you're going to be a part of it, you're going to pitch in. If you're not going to pitch in, check out and do it now.
To follow up, in the times I don't typically have a lot of group projects, but I have done them in the past. And I always put in some rules where if the team, let's say there's 5 to the team, and if 4 unanimously decide to remove a member, that's their choice. And what I find is they'll come and tell me, we have a member not doing their job, and I said, well, you have the power, and they will refuse to do that. And you run into that same thing in business where people wanting to be a nice guy, they don't want to be the one that points the finger.
Well, what if it's your boss?
That's your leadership. That's a leadership skill that's got to be learned by those people, that they've got to make hard decisions. And, in business, as I mentioned earlier, I believe that if someone isn't able to participate and contribute his fair share, that he's doing something that he really doesn't want to do. And he needs to go find something that he's got a passion about. I mean, you can be passionate about what you're working on, you're gonna be successful.
Colin Powell has 18 rules of success, and the first rule of
Tell me you
success.
don't know them all.
I know the first one. I know the first one, and the first one is sometimes you have to piss people off. That's his first rule of success. Sometimes you have to piss people off. And I think if you got somebody that's a slugger and he's not pulling his weight, you know, whether you like it or not, part of leadership is to identify it. It really is. And you know, do you lead at 18 or do you wait till you're 62? I mean, when do you lead? But some of that, part of that is being a leader. And if the group is coming to you, professor, and saying, you know, then they've got to kind of look internally and stuff. There's a way to do it. There's a way to say, John, you're not pulling your weight. You're just not doing it. And that's not demeaning. That's not telling him anything he doesn't know. But a leader has to do it. And most of the time I understand what you're saying. People just keep cruising and pick up for the slack, right? But sometimes you gotta piss people off.
I usually do.
Not only taking up space, but you'll
Yeah.
I have all sorts of talents.
Any students have any other questions? We'll end the question answer session here right now, just for an opportunity for you guys to start your interviews and then be able to catch your flight. Thank you both, Tom and Bobby.